Once upon a time, in the peaceful kingdom of Corona, Rapunzel lived happily with her parents. The king and queen, her golden hair, now shorter and brown after the magic was gone, still shimmered under the sunlight. Every year, Corona celebrated the Festival of Light, a magical night where thousands of lanterns floated into the starry sky, celebrating hope, dreams, and new beginnings. This year, Rapunzel was more excited than ever. "I want to make this year's festival unforgettable," she told Pascal, her loyal chameleon. But what could she do? She already painted, sang, and danced during past festivals. Then, an idea brighter than a lantern lit up her mind. She would create the biggest, brightest, and most magical lantern Corona had ever seen. Early the next morning, Rapunzel put on her adventure boots, packed her backpack with art supplies, ropes, and snacks, and set off into the village with Pascal perched on her shoulder. First, she visited the market square. "Good morning, Rapunzel," called out Mrs. Delia, the cheerful baker. "Good morning," Rapunzel smiled. "I'm looking for strong, colorful paper for a special project." Mrs. Delia pointed to Mr. Finnegan's stall, where the most beautiful papers danced in the breeze. Rapunzel picked rolls of shimmering pink, sparkling gold, and sky blue paper. Next, she visited Xavier, the inventor. His workshop was filled with curious gadgets. "Xavier, I need something that can make my lantern truly magical," Rapunzel said. Xavier scratched his head, then handed her a tiny jar filled with glimmerdust, a sparkling powder that, when heated, would make the lantern shine like a star. "Use it wisely," he warned with a wink. Rapunzel thanked him and skipped to her next stop, the meadow beyond the village. There, she collected strong reeds to form the frame of her enormous lantern. Back at the palace, Rapunzel chose a quiet spot in the royal gardens. She spread out all her materials, rolled up her sleeves, and began to work. She bent and tied the reeds into a giant circular frame. She glued and stitched the colorful papers carefully, weaving beautiful patterns, suns, flowers, stars, and castles. Pascal helped by holding the tiny corners with his tiny paws, sometimes getting tangled up in the paper, making Rapunzel giggle. For hours and hours, they worked. Birds chirped, the wind blew gently, and the scent of flowers filled the air. By sunset, the enormous lantern stood tall and proud, shining with colors that caught every ray of light. Rapunzel sprinkled the glimmerdust carefully, humming a happy tune. But just as she stepped back to admire her creation, whoosh! A sudden gust of wind knocked the lantern over, and it rolled across the garden like a giant, colorful ball. "Ah, no!" Rapunzel cried, chasing after it. With Pascal's help, she grabbed it just before it tumbled into the royal fountain. Laughing breathlessly, Rapunzel hugged Pascal. "We need a better plan," she said. That night, Rapunzel found Eugene Flynn Rider practicing his official royal storytelling voice for the festival. "Eugene, I need your help," Rapunzel said, explaining her plan and the small disaster. Eugene grinned. "Sounds like you need Team Awesome," he said dramatically, pointing to himself. Together, with Pascal supervising, "The lantern is too heavy for normal lifting," Eugene said thoughtfully. "We need to create lots of hot air underneath it safely." They built a platform from old wood planks and placed small, contained fires beneath it. The warm air would fill the lantern slowly and lift it high into the sky. They worked through the night, under the soft glow of the moon. The day of the Festival of Light arrived. The streets of Corona buzzed with excitement. There were ribbons and flowers everywhere, music and laughter filling the air. People carried beautiful lanterns shaped like suns, flowers, stars, and even animals. When it was time, everyone gathered by the riverside. The king and queen stood proudly, ready to release the first lantern. But just as the ceremony began, gray clouds rolled over the sky. A strong wind started to blow, rattling the lanterns. Rapunzel looked up worriedly. "What if my lantern can't fly?" she whispered. Eugene squeezed her hand. "You can do this, Blondie," he said, smiling. Rapunzel took a deep breath. She remembered everything she learned: teamwork, patience, and never giving up. She gave the signal. The fires beneath the giant lantern were lit. Warm air filled the enormous, colorful creation. Slowly, slowly, it lifted. The entire kingdom watched with wide eyes. The giant lantern rose higher and higher, swirling the glimmerdust into sparkling clouds. It outshone every other light, glowing like a second sun in the sky. Even the gray clouds seemed to drift away, as if making room for its beauty. The children cheered. The elders gasped in wonder. The king and queen clapped proudly. Dozens, then hundreds, then thousands of smaller lanterns floated up too, creating a river of golden light that stretched all the way to the stars. Rapunzel laughed with pure joy, spinning around with Pascal in her arms. That night, after the festival, the king and queen gathered everyone in the royal square. Tonight, we saw something more than beauty, said the king. We saw courage, creativity, and teamwork. From now on, every festival of light will have a special lantern, created by the young dreamers of Corona. The crowd cheered. Rapunzel blushed, but smiled proudly. That evening, lying on the soft grass, watching the last glowing lanterns drift into the night sky, Rapunzel whispered to Pascal, "Dreams are even more beautiful when you share them." Pascal nuzzled her cheek, agreeing silently, and in the twinkling kingdom of Corona, dreams and lights continued to rise higher and higher, forever. The end.